My first book is The Widow of Rose House, and it's by Diana Biller. So this is a historical fiction mystery romance, and it takes place in 1875 in New York during the Gilded Age. And I had to laugh a little bit because the back of the book says, "A Gothic mansion, a woman shadowed by a tragic past, the man who loves her." And that made me laugh because it sounds very dramatic. And I thought it was, I mean, it's accurate, but this book has like a lightheartedness to it, even though it does have some heavy themes in it. So the first main character is Alva Webster, and we get her perspective and we get her love interest's perspective. His name is Sam Moore. It's alternating perspectives, which I always enjoy in a book. So Alva Webster she's a young widow, and her scandalous life is the topic of conversation on two continents, in Paris, where she was living with her late husband, and New York, where she has just returned home. So she's basically been shunned by everyone because of these scandalous rumors about the kind of life she used to live. She's said to be a woman with loose morals. And so everyone has shunned her, including her own parents, although we come to find out that her parents were pretty horrible to begin with. And she has moved back to New York. Her husband has died. She's inherited his money. So now she's actually an independent woman because she has a lot of money. And so she's purchased this crumbling old house, the Gothic mansion mentioned, and it is said to be haunted. But her plan is to renovate this house, or get people to help her renovate this house, and then to document her work in a book. So she has a career plan, which I loved. It's very exciting. So that's what she's doing in New York. And so when the story opened, she's out to eat, and she's in this restaurant, and everybody's kind of whispering and looking at her because they know who she is. She's the scandalous Alva Webster. She's just trying to ignore them and enjoy her meal. And then at a table a little bit further away, there's this Professor Samuel Moore, and he is our other main character. So we get his perspective as well.
I already love him.
Oh, I love him so much. I'll tell you more about him. So he is a famous scientist. He is known for being a pioneer of electrical lighting, and he's for the time, and he's also a member of the Moore family of scientists. His father was a famous scientist. Even his mother and his sister are known for their science, their discoveries. And he is out to dinner. It's like a business dinner, and the gentlemen that he's out to dinner with start gossiping about the Alva Webster, who's at the other table, and they're just sort of whispering about her life and what she, orgies and sex parties. They're mentioning what she was known for. And he is not paying attention because he doesn't care about that. But then they say that she purchased the crumbling mansion in town that's said to be haunted. And he's like, wait, haunted? What? Because one of his scientific interests is life after death and whether it can be proven. And he is interested in exploring and, examining any evidence of life after death, as scientists were in 1870s. So he decides he's going to approach Mrs. Webster and ask her if he can come and examine her house, do some work in her house. So he does. She ignores him because she's basically wary of everybody because of the rumors that are printed about her in the newspaper. And so she tells him no. But as he's leaving, she also kind of notices that he's kind of tall and handsome. And so they sort of notice each other, but then run away. But then, as you might expect, they keep running into each other. And he comes out to her house and sort of poking around because he's really intrigued by this. And she eventually decides to let him help her because nobody in the town will help her renovate the house. There's been an incident that was spooky at the house. And so none of the workers will come back. And she's sort of between a rock and a hard place. She has nobody to help her renovate this house. She's on her own. And so she sort of gets to know Sam Moore. Just a word about him. He is the most delightful character. He's like this sort of bumbling, super tall, like really sweet guy, but who's always like he'll stop and lace up his boot, and then he'll say, "Did it always take me that long to lace up my boot? Like I need to invent something." And then he'll like grab a pencil and like start drawing something. And meanwhile, his friends are like, "We were going out to dinner. Are you coming?" And he like has completely forgotten. He's just like such a sweet character. And so he and Alva develop this friendship. And this isn't too much of a spoiler to say that it's rumors. The rumors are not true. It turns out that her late husband was horribly abusive to her, horribly abusive to his mother, And so that becomes a whole side story that I won't get into too much, but there's several different stories happening. There's the romance between Sam and Alva that's sort of building. There's the Gothic mansion and what happened there and why is it haunted? Like what's going on with that? And then there's the family of her husband that she's left behind. So there's a lot of things happening, but it all works. It's such a delightful story. It's despite some of the heavy themes, it takes place in winter, so it has this great wintry feeling. I loved the characters. The Sam Moore's scientist family is one of the best families I've read in fiction. I wish I would read a whole book about them. I kind of hope there's more books. This would be great for fans of historical fiction, also fans of romance. I am not a big romance reader. I'm a very picky romance reader. Lizzie can attest to this. I do not like romance. And it takes a lot for me to like a romance. So this isn't too much. There are some sexy times in this book. Not too much and not too little. Just the right amount.
Just the right amount.
Just the right
Christie
amount. The Christie amount. And I loved the historical details. So fans of Bridgerton, which sort of took the Netflix show that everybody loved over the pandemic, this would be a great Christmas gift or Hanukkah gift for anyone who loved Bridgerton if they're looking for something else.
Great cover. It's such a great cover.
Beautiful cover. And this is her debut novel. So I'm so excited to read more by her. So it's very promising. So that's The Widow of Rose House. And next, I'm going to move on to Lizzie.
Thank you, Christy. We forgot to say at the beginning that if anybody throughout the night you want a specific recommendation for a friend or someone in your family for a gift idea, be like, oh, I have an uncle who only reads World War II. If you think about it throughout, we'll hang around at the end. You've got a lot of different readers here that between us, we could probably come up with a title or at least get one to you. So if something occurs to you and you want to hang around or send us it through the chat, we'll happy to try to answer it on the fly. Okay, so my first pick is The Reading List by Sarah Nisha Adams. I'm going to try to get through this without tearing up because it's not sappy, but I just it will happen. My voice will crack. So this is a story about how a chance encounter with a list of books ends up forging an unlikely friendship and connects all of these different people together through a library. So when I was reflecting on it today, I was like, this story is kind of a love letter to a library and how it could be the heart of a community. And I'm already getting sappy. So the first character that I'm going to introduce you to is Mukesh. He's a widower. He lives a quiet life in a London suburb. And he's just it's been a year since he's lost his beloved wife. And he kind of is settled into a routine. He shops every Wednesday. He loves to watch his nature documentaries. He's got, he goes to temple. He has 3 adult daughters who will call him and leave him these hilarious messages like, you remember you need to eat today and you need to go do this. And they're kind of all nagging him in a way that I'm like, do I do that? But they're just, want to pop in and take care of him. But he is kind of left to his own devices. So while cleaning up one day, he finds a copy of The Time Traveler's Wife. His wife was a bookworm. She read all the time and he never understood it. He had no access to reading or reading life, but something he picks it up and he starts reading it. And one of the things I like about this book is that as somebody who he thinks he doesn't read a lot, it's a struggle at first for him to get into it and understand but he keeps trying and then he gets completely wrapped up in the story. And it makes him not only think of his love for his wife, but he feels her presence there and almost can hear her voice. And so he rereads it. And as time goes on, it's a library book. It's been there for a couple of years. So he's like, I need to go to the library to return this. And even the thought of breaking his routine and going to the library by himself is a big deal. It's a big, courageous move, like finding the right, bus line and going in and asking for a library card. And I really appreciated the details of that can be hard. That can be hard to get out of your comfort zone. And so he plans to do it because, his granddaughter, who's a bookworm and connected with his wife, he wants to find a way to connect with her. So he makes his way to the library. He's got The Time Traveler's Wife and he goes up to the desk and there's kind of a young woman there and he asks for a book recommendation. And after struggling to get in the door, there's a lot of comedic times. And her name is Alicia. She has a summer job there for the summer. She's bright, she's smart, but she has a lot of baggage at home. Her mom is undiagnosed mental illness. Her and her brother kind of taking care of their mom. And so she doesn't know what to recommend to him, but she's really rude. And she's just like, there are books on the shelf, go get one yourself. as a librarian, I was horrified. And his pride is hurt. He feels like he got all the way there, and he stalks to the shelf. He's like, I can do this myself. And he grabs a how-to manual on how to like fix car tires. And he sits down and pretends to read it. And then he gets really upset and just dashes out the door, not checking out that book or returning his other book. And she feels really bad immediately. And when she's returning a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, a crumbled up piece of paper falls out, and it's a book list. And on the top of it is To Kill a Mockingbird. So she's intrigued and she's bored this summer. All her friends are out, so she reads it. And she keeps thinking about Mukesh. And so she decides to, he asked for a book recommendation. She's going to give it. So she places it on hold for him. And it strikes this unlikely friendship, because as she's making her way through the reading list that she's found, she is, passing the next book on to him. So she's reading it furiously so she can pass it on to him. And rereading these books, she's finding connection to Atticus and, the father figure and what is family. And he's finding a way to deal with his grief. And, they're each getting different pieces out of it. Made me want to reread all of these books. But so they passing along, and throughout the story too, the reading list wasn't just in that one book. It was placed in different books at different locations, at a community center, at a gym. And you wonder, who wrote this list and why is it placed anywhere, and all of that mystery surrounding it. And then on top of it, this kind of local library, there's all these signs of, who uses the library anymore. So there's this feeling of, can this reading list bring people together and bring people back to the library? And the reading list, if you are curious, because it's on the first page, it starts with To Kill a Mockingbird, Rebecca, the Kite Runner. See, I'm even getting emotional because I know what all these like books mean to the different characters now. Life of Pi, Pride and Prejudice, Little Women, Beloved, and A Suitable Boy. So it starts with, and I think at the top of the reading list, it says something like, if you're, if you're in need, something like that. So if this is for, any reader in your life, you can access it. And honestly, even non-readers, because it's a gift in itself, because it really has a lot of characters who see themselves not as readers. But there deals with grief and a lot of emotions, but it's not sappy. It's so heartwarming and very uplifting. So as I said, it's kind of a love letter to a library. So that is my first pick, called The Reading List by Sarah Nisha Adams.
Thank you, Lizzie. Move on to Liz Keefe.
Oh, Felicia.
Oh, I'm sorry, Felicia. It's my turn. So sorry. So if you read the reading list and then you're like, wow, I loved reading a book that took place in London, I want to read another book that takes place in London, this might be the book for you. So This Time Next Year is a romance that is like perfect for the holidays. It focuses all around like New Year's Eve, which is supposed to be romantic, but it never really is. So it follows Minnie, who has never met Oliver Hamilton, but that doesn't stop her from absolutely hating him. She blames him for all of her bad luck that has followed her ever since he was born, only a few minutes before her at the hospital just after midnight on New Year's Day. So not only did he win the cash prize for being the first baby born in London in 1990, but he also took the name that she was supposed to have. So her name is Minnie Cooper, which, as you would assume, is like, she is absolutely destroyed, getting made fun of in elementary school, middle school, high school, her adult life. Like, everyone makes fun of her for having the name Minnie and the last name Cooper. So she just absolutely hates this guy, never met him until they both turn 30. It is a New Year's Eve party on their joint 30th birthday. And she realizes how much their luck is different. Quinn is rich, handsome, he's a business owner, a very successful business. He has a perfect girlfriend. Minnie is close to losing her baking company, can't seem to find a boyfriend that likes her more than he likes his coffee maker. And just really is like, she does not feel like she is living up to, what Quinn's life is. And they get to talking and they realize like how many times fate has almost brought them together. And it kind of, moves into more. So what I loved about it though, is it's not your like typical romance. It doesn't follow that like normal formula. It actually, you get to learn more about who Minnie is and like what's going on in her life. And it has that like perfect wintry holiday Hallmark vibe without being like too cheesy. So I loved this book. I thought it was so good. And it starts off on New Year's Eve and then it ends off on New Year's Eve. So it's a nice little bookend of the holidays. And that's this time next year.
Liz, isn't your birthday New Year's Eve or New Year's Day?
My birthday is New Year's Eve, not New Year's Day.
No, you didn't get the cash prize.
I did not get the cash prize. But my dad did get a tax break because you get the kid for the whole year, even if they're born on the last day.
There you go.
Well,
Lizzie,
thank you,
your
Felicia.
uncle was born on New Year's Eve, and he got the prize.
Oh, there you go.
Never heard of this
1161.
prize.
Oh, you didn't know? All the stores in Lowell donated things.
Wow.
That is really cool. I wonder if that tradition's still going.
Yeah, I've never heard
Probably not.
Okay, so I'm gonna take things a little darker. We were never
We're ready.
Here. So We Were Never Here is about two best friends who are best friends from college, Kristen and Emily, and they take a vacation to a exotic location every year. And this year they end up going to Chile. And last year on their trip, they had some tension at the end of the trip. So they're finally starting to get back into a good place with each other, having a good time. Emily's been very tense, and the girls go out for their last night there. And Kristen meets a cute backpacker in a bar, and she basically signals to Emily that she's going to take him home and like back to the hotel. So they have this little like deal sort of that she'll hang back, that Emily will hang back, and Kristen will go take the boy back to the hotel. Shouldn't say boy, man. And so then later when Emily returns to the hotel, she finds that Kristen is standing over the backpacker and he's dead. And
ooh, already that's a twist.
that is a twist.
And what I thought was going to happen.
So Emily is really freaked out, but mostly she's freaked out, not mostly, she's freaked out because of that, but she is also really shook up because at the end of their trip the previous year, Emily had taken a man back to her hotel, and Kristen had to like barge in because he was sexually assaulting her, and she killed him. So now this is 2 vacations in a row that ends with 2 dead bodies. So then the girls go back to their normal lives. They met in college. Emily lives in Wisconsin, and Kristen lives in Australia. So Emily is extremely disturbed by the things that have happened. So she finally starts seeing a therapist because, she thinks that will help. She has a new boyfriend, and she's starting to get her life back together. And then all of a sudden, Kristen comes back to Wisconsin, and she's going to stay for a while. And pretty much whatever Emily's going to be doing, Kristen's showing up, inserting herself into her life, the people around her, her boyfriend. And so how it goes from there is pretty intense. And I will say I found this book completely compulsively readable. I started it on a plane, and I was visiting my daughter at college for the first time, and I read it like the whole way there. I read it in the cab to college campus, and then when Catherine fell asleep that night, I finished the book before I went to bed. So it was definitely, I was just like, I have to know.
Yes, Same, Liz.
Yeah.
Are you telling Catherine,
I read
like,
it
don't
in a
ever go on any college trips with a friend like Kristen?
Yeah. Catherine is very tired of all the things. I'm like, never do this.
I read it in a thriller. I read this too, Liz, and I had the same experience where I ignored my family all weekend. I was like, I need to finish this tomorrow, so you can feed yourselves, children.
And what's interesting about it is I read like in the inside flap of the book, it tells you like sort of what I just told you, not exactly. So you know something like this happens. And I was kind of like, why do I want to read this book? And once I was in it, it was just like, I have to know. And I'm just really glad that these aren't my friends.
Yes, it's the paranoia. It's like a paranoid, I call it like a paranoid thriller where you're reading it, it like creeps up on you.
Psychological. Like it was just like sort of like weighing on me. Like yeah, so I definitely couldn't stop thinking about it. So I just think, and if you have someone who likes thrillers, and I'm gonna buy this. I have a niece who's 24, and I'm gonna buy this for her because she loves books like this. And you know, there's not that many great ones out there, and this one I just really enjoyed.
Thank you, Liz.
Sure.
Great. All right, Abby.
Hi, so I'm so glad to know that you two read that book, because I want to talk to you about the ending of We Were Never Here. So good to know. Okay, so we'll have this conversation tomorrow. The first book I'm going to talk about is a mystery detective police procedural book, The Madness of Crowds by Louise Penny. It's a New York Times bestseller. I actually read it using Libby. And so I kept it close to me, like whenever I could. So yes, this is a book that kept me interested. It took me longer to read than I would have liked because I read it at night and I would fall asleep at night. But doesn't mean anything about the book. It just means I'm tired. So this is a standalone, I believe, in the series of Chief Inspector Gamache. If I'm botching that name, I'm sorry. This is number 17 in that series. So that says to me, I like this book and there's more in the series, so I can go back to read more about this cozy little life in Three Pines, and it's a little village in Quebec. And the setting is post-COVID, and it's a few days before, the book starts a few days before New Year's Eve, New Year's, and it's winter, and the description of the setting makes me want to drink a cup of hot chocolate. It talks about little cafes and your feet crunching in the snow. So the ice skating, the fun revelry that kids have in wintertime, the rosy cheeks, the faces. So the setting is set up so beautifully. But it starts with Inspector Gamache being asked to be security team for this event that's coming up at a local university. And again, it's a post-COVID world, so there's still a lot of feelings. There's still a big divide in people. There's a relief that people are back, things are back to normal, but still there's this sort of simmering of bad feelings of sort of anger and sadness and fear. And what happens is that the person speaking is a renowned statistician, a university professor, but what she's talking about is very controversial. So that's why he and his team were called in to be the security for this event. So the statistician, her name's Abby. Unfortunately, I won't share my opinion about her, but her assessment about what to do with people, and this is post-COVID, after watching the elderly get overlooked and die by themselves in nursing homes, led her to the conclusion that euthanasia, like by law, is what is required for society, and the elimination of any disabled children. So you could see that it could spark a lot of anger among people in the crowds, or there are really staunch well, big fans of hers, but also a lot of enemies. And in this event, there was an attempt at her life. And so then Inspector Gamash's team is brought in to do more investigation to see who's behind this attempt at her life. So Abby has to stay in this cute little town and she's meeting all the people. Inspector Gamash has a grandchild with Down syndrome who he is afraid to meet this woman because under her laws, or the laws that she wants to introduce to Canada, is that this child not be alive. He also has some history. When he went, like during COVID, he went to nursing homes and he just saw a lot of death. So he has a lot of trauma based on that too. So in this investigation, Abigail goes to meet the other community members, and you think like people really want to hate her, but she's a likable person, seems so calm and nice and very pleasant. So then you can see how quickly this message is like embraced by people. And he, the inspector, is watching people get lured in by her. But then someone commits a murder. And that is pretty much the rest of the story. So I won't give it away. It just, for me, it brought up some really interesting questions and perspectives. And also with the detective mystery, thriller, police procedural, but also the setting. But it was, I mean, it's a tough question that that the author raises, and it's one that I was bringing to my own family members, just talking about the post-COVID world, what this perspective means. It's somewhat harsh, but then meeting this woman, how she seems so likable. But I will leave you with this, and I hope you do read this book, and I hope it sparks some really good conversation with you and your family during the holidays.
Thank you, Abby. It's so interesting. It's there's all these books coming out now, or books are starting to come out that take place either during COVID or in the post-COVID world, and some people are ready for them and some people want to pretend it doesn't exist in books. Like I've heard from both sides, people who want to read books that take place or acknowledge COVID, and people who want to read books that do not acknowledge COVID. I think personally I want to read books that acknowledge COVID because it was such a huge part of our lives. So, and it's still, right? All right. Louise Penny, she writes so many books. She's one of the most prolific, isn't she? Okay, moving on to something completely different. My next book is a young adult book, but I think it has appeal for adults as well. I think this is definitely one of those crossover books. It is a fun and creative retelling of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. It's the afterlife of Holly Chase, and the author is Cynthia Hand. And so when the story opens, we meet Holly Chase. She's 16 years old. She's incredibly selfish and spoiled. She's the daughter of a famous Hollywood film director, and her stepmother was a celebrity stylist who recently died after complications from plastic surgery. So she is living this super cushy, privileged life in LA, but she's also been sort of ignored, raised by nannies, raised by housekeepers her whole life. So the story opens on Christmas Eve, and Holly tells her own story. It's first person, and this author, Cynthia Hand, is so great at creating unique author voices. I loved Holly's voice. So Holly's telling her story. It opens on Christmas Eve. She finds herself alone. Her dad isn't there. And she basically takes her misery out on her housekeeper, who was supposed to leave early, have the next day off. It's Christmas Day. And Holly tells her, like, no, you're going to cook me this meal. You don't have the day off. I need you to come in tomorrow. You're going to paint my toenails. She's just being horrible to her. And if that scenario sounds familiar, it's because it's just like the beginning of A Christmas Carol, when Scrooge is yelling at Bob Cratchit, telling him, you can't leave early, and being difficult. So that night, Holly goes to bed, and she is visited by 3 ghosts: Ghost of Christmas Past, the Ghost of Christmas Present, the Ghost of Christmas Future. And they're showing her all of these, the story. They're showing her the scenes. They're trying to get her to change her ways. But Holly, it doesn't work on Holly. She basically rolls her eyes at them. It's like, really? So yes. So she's one of these characters that you kind of love to hate. So it's one of the reasons it's fun to read at first. Like she's just kind of like, okay, next, So she wakes up her maid comes, her maid comes to work. She treats her horribly. She goes on with her life. 6 days pass, and she's killed in a tragic accident. Holly is killed. It happens in front of her yoga studio. She's leaving her celebrity yoga class, and an icicle, there's been a freak cold snap in LA, an icicle breaks off the building. I think it's something like falls into the road in front of a bicyclist who causes traffic to veer off, and Holly gets hit by a car and she dies. So then she wakes up in a strange place. She doesn't know what's happened, but she can see it's almost like an office, and she can tell by the light she's not in LA anymore. So she looks out the window, she sees like dirty snow and traffic, and she's like, I'm in New York City. I hate New York City. So a few minutes after that, this man comes in to the room, and I actually just marked it in the book so I could read to you the conversation they have. So she says, am I dead? And the man says, yes. He didn't sound too broken up about it. And no. And I stared at him. What does that mean? It means, he said matter-of-factly, that while you are working for us for however long that may be, you are flesh and not spirit. You are alive, but to everyone outside of this company, you are very much dead. Dead as a doornail, as they say. I think I need to sit down, I said. He guided me to the sofa and then fetched me a cup of water. Am I dreaming? I asked him hopefully. Nope, there's no waking up from it this time, I'm afraid. Did you say that I'm going to be working for you? And he smiled. Yes, you are, my dear. Welcome to Project Scrooge. So Holly finds out that she is what's considered a failed Scrooge, which just makes me laugh when just saying that. So she is basically, Project Scrooge is a top secret company that stages like the Three Ghosts of Christmas Carol experience for people. So every year a new Scrooge is identified, and then the employees spend the year sort of sifting through that person's life, and they have some, I don't remember how they explain it, but they basically have like some supernatural tricks that they can use to sort of secretly sneak around the person who's been selected as the Scrooge. They sneak around their life to sort of gather information and intelligence on the person so that they can have, create this experience on Christmas Eve that will hopefully make them change their ways. And so they had done that with Holly, but she had been a failed Scrooge. So now her fate in the afterlife is to be the new ghost of Christmas past. So she has to work as the ghost of Christmas past. And so 5 years pass and she's doing this job. And then a new Scrooge is selected that is sort of a young guy, her age. She's been 17 for 5 years, by the way, because she never ages. And so the guy that is picked is like a teen like her. He reminds her a lot of herself. He reminds her of herself. So he has a similar background, similar relationship with his parents. And so the more, basically, something sort of finally changes in her, and she starts to think maybe she can make a difference. I don't want to give away too much more than that. It's throughout her experience working for Project Scrooge, you also learn a lot about her life, how she came to be who she is, or who she was when she died. This is it's a perfect seasonal read, although I think Lizzie and I both read this and agreed you could read it any time of year, but it's because it does take place, like it's not just Christmas, but the main events take place at Christmas. So it's a great seasonal read. And it's Holly's 17 when she dies, but then she's sort of like a young adult. I think it has appeal for anyone who loves a Christmas story, especially a quirky Christmas story. It's not exactly Hallmark.
No, it's funny. Quirky. It's also really funny.
Really funny. I listened to this in a December. I think it was a couple Decembers ago while I was wrapping presents, driving around, running errands, doing that kind of thing. So it was great on audio, really great. If you like audiobooks, and I believe it's on Hoopla right now.
It is both the ebook and the audiobook. And I will give a shout out that my YA for Adult Book Club, this is the book pick that we're going to do for December. So great, you just got a little taste of it.
Yeah. So that's The Afterlife of Holly Chase. And I will move along now to Lizzie.
Oh, different than I thought I was going to do. I didn't look at the presentation. Okay, so this is The Neighbor's Secret. I did the reading list, which I said was a love letter to libraries. This is a love letter to book clubs. It is a domestic suspenseful thriller, but it's a slow burn. It's for fans of Liane Moriarty. What appealed most to me is what I did not expect is that I really laughed a lot during this. It's not a comedy, but it's very witty. It's like the conversations, the kind of like side-eyed view of suburban, you know, life and all of these things. It's really funny in the midst of this kind of woohoo, everyone has a secret. So it takes place over the course of a year, and it's kind of marked by each month's book club of this so-called perfect community of Cottonwood Estates. Everybody is concerned about, you know, their kids succeeding and keeping the community clean and perfect, and everybody has secrets. But this book club, which is filled with all of the ladies of the neighborhood, I would join this book club. They make really strong cocktails. They always match the book, and it doesn't spend too much time at these meetings, but it's how the story progresses. So you get a little taste of it. And if anything in this book, I was like, I could definitely hang out with some of these ladies. So it opens up with this, you know, dropping you into something's happened. You know, you don't even know who's talking yet. It's just that it's almost like Gossip Girl. Like, I saw so-and-so was there and they saw this. So you know that there's been a murder, and you know that somebody has lied and that somebody has done it, but that's all you know. So from then on, it takes you get introduced to the first woman, which is called Lena. She has the biggest house on the block, and she lives an isolated life. So she doesn't really know these ladies now. Something tragic happens 15 years prior, and her husband has died, and her daughter, she had one daughter, went to boarding school at 15 and has never returned. She's, you know, FaceTimes with her mom, but there's something that they just can't face that's happened in the neighborhood. But Lena has never really moved on, and she's never really connected with anyone. So the drama that sets this off is that there's a vandal in the neighborhood, which is the text message exchange of this vandal who's like kicking over, you know, trash cans and like using graffiti. It's the biggest uproar of the neighborhood of the century. And so Annie is this young mom of, you know, she's, you know, devoted wife, and she's walking the dog and she sees that Lena's mailbox was vandalized. So she's like, I'm just gonna go and tell her, like, that's embarrassing. And ends up, you know, Lena invites her inside and ends up striking this friendship with her. And so Lena starts getting drawn out of this kind of self-imposed isolation by befriending Annie, and then eventually coming to the book club. And through there, we meet a few of the other women of the book club. And one in particular her name is Jen, and her son is in 8th grade and has been diagnosed with being a sociopath. The opening scene with her is that they're in the principal's office because her son has stabbed just the hand of another student, you know, he got mad, and he gets kicked out. And so she is hilarious. And I don't mean to say that this is about me, that I'm like, oh, she's really funny, but the way that she's like, oh my gosh, every kid's a sociopath, am I right? Like, her dealing with this secret. So anything that's happening in the neighborhood, she's like, oh my God, is it my son? And then she's like, did I spoil him too much? All of that, you know, that plays into it. So you get her perspective, you get Lena's perspective, and you get Annie's. And as the story unfolds, like I said, everybody has a secret, and it goes flashback to something that happened 15 years prior in the neighborhood, and something that happened at this party in the present tense that we don't really know. You know, it keeps dropping this, like, I saw those two together and leave together, and that type of thing. So there's a web of lies. There's the pains of dealing with teenage children, and a lot of nosy neighbors, and lots of gossip. So as I said, it's a great gift for somebody that really likes their thrillers with a big domestic, you know, portion of it. Leanne Moriarty, Big Little Lies. It gives me a lot of that vibe, and it has some wit and some warmth in there. So if you feel like you know a reader in your life who's read everything by, you know, Leanne Moriarty, then this might be a pick that they might have overlooked, because I haven't heard too much talk about it. So it might be worth their while.
Thank you. All right. Felicia.
Cool. So my book is The Box in the Woods, which is technically part of a series, but this is a standalone version of it. So it's almost like a companion novel. But what I love is you don't actually need to read the other 3 books to enjoy this. It helps kind of get a sense of the characters, but it's not necessary. And this is a very fun mystery thriller, I guess. So it basically follows, let me just get this up. Okay. It follows Stevie Bell, who is the main character of the series, who became famous after investigating and solving a boarding school mystery at the fictional but famous Ellingham Academy. Basically, she's amazing at solving cold cases. And so she gets an Instagram message from the owner of Sunny Pines, which is a summer camp. It was formerly known as Camp Wonder Falls, which is the site of a notorious unsolved case called the Box in the Woods murder, thus the title. So basically back in 1978, 4 camp counselors, Eric, Todd, I forget the other 2 names, but Sabrina is like the main one that we follow, and another girl, they are basically found in like a hunting blind in like a box, killed after they like snuck off from camp and were smoking weed. So of course in the 70s that was like, oh no, you know, it was the drugs that got them. And so the police didn't really do the best they could, and the town is so small that everyone kind of knew what was going on, but not everyone helped. Everyone had an opinion of what happened. Some people thought Todd deserved it because he apparently possibly was drinking and driving and killed another kid a few months earlier. So it was all this drama back in the 70s about what happened at this case. And then in present day, Stevie comes to this camp and she says, you know, yes, I will come and, you know, help do this, try to solve this murder. The guy who is the owner wants to do a true crime podcast with her. So like she says, sure, why not? As long as my friends get to come. So we get to see some of the characters that were in the old, in the other series, kind of come and help her and interact with a bunch of screaming children during a summer camp, which is a little bit hilarious. But basically what I love about this series, the way Maureen Johnson writes it, is you get a few chapters that are present day, and then you get one chapter that takes place for the cold case. So you get to see what the town is like in the 70s, and actually Stevie's able to talk to a lot of the people who were there and involved in the case and friends with those kids who still live in town. So like one owns a bakery and she talks to that person. Sabrina's sister still lives in town. So Stevie gets to like ask her how she felt about it, what happened during it. And then of course, even though this is a long dormant case, cold case, nothing has ever happened in the past few years. As soon as Stevie comes, she is now getting, you know, threatening messages saying that she needs to stop investigating. There may be some people who there becomes more victims. It's very fun, very exciting. It is a YA, but this is interest for everybody. I think the series Truly Devious really went around library staff. I think most of the people on staff have read this series at some point. And this one I think was just, whoever read it was just as well received. So highly recommend this book or this series.
Co-sign.
Yes, I agree too. This was great. I did not see
Amazing.
it coming, standing. It was really well done.
She writes incredibly great mysteries, in my opinion. Maureen Johnson. Don't sleep on her. She's a good one. Thank you, Felicia. Abby. No, Liz. Oh my God. I keep thinking I know what order
We're keeping everybody on their toes.
Yeah, it's just making sure you're so sorry.
Okay, so my next book is Rock, Paper, Scissors, which is about Adam and Amelia Wright. They live in London and they have been married for 10 years, and they decide to go away on a trip for their wedding anniversary because their marriage is in trouble. So this trip is, you know, basically a last ditch effort to like save the marriage. And so Amelia and Adam and their dog Bob head up to Scotland in Amelia's old car. There's definitely has a wintry feel like some of the other books because it snows like the whole time. And so they finally arrive in Scotland at the Blackwater Chapel. And so it's an old chapel that's been renovated, and people can stay there. But things are really weird when they arrive, like the housekeeper or person that's supposed to let them in isn't there. They have some issues with the electricity and finding food, and various things that were supposed to be taken care of are not. They think they see someone outside. So it has this sort of spooky, creepy vibe in the beginning. And so then we start to learn a little bit about why Amelia and Adam feel that their marriage is in trouble. So it's told in alternating perspectives. Some of it's through Adam's voice and some of it's through Amelia's. And Amelia will read some letters that she's written every year on their anniversary that sort of describe the year through her perspective, and good and bad about Adam. And then we get to hear Adam's voice sort of talking about things as he remembers them. And continuously weird things happen while they're staying there. And so there's sort of like these clues being dropped throughout the letters in the past to figure out sort of why they're at Blackwater Chapel and who it involves. And, you know, are they a good couple or a bad couple? And so I just found it really interesting. I usually can see twists and turns coming. I didn't know when I read this. This is the first Alice Feeney book I've read. And I came to realize that she's referred to as the Queen of the Twist. Ooh. As an author. And I can see why, because I felt completely blindsided. I was like, whoa, what's happening? and not just once. So I just really enjoyed it. And I really wanted to find out what was happening at Blackwater Chapel. And
I've started listening to it, Liz, and I am so tense driving because I don't know what's happening. Like I don't know what's happening, that I'm like, always, my stomach is tight. I'm like, what is really happening? Who do I trust?
It was a tense book. I'm trying to think of another book. Like it's definitely like this feeling of like dread, sort of like what's happening. And I could not figure out like I feel like when you read a story about a marriage, you're always like, I'm on this person's side.
Exactly.
And I did not feel that way in this. I was like, wait, am I on this side? Am I like, I kept like just ping-ponging back and forth between them. And
marriage is hard enough, but the husband I don't remember what
right.
Called.
I forgot that key part.
What is
key,
it called?
It's not key, but
is it key though? Sorry.
But Adam suffers from a disorder, which I cannot pronounce, but the official title, but it's called face blindness. So basically he can't recognize people's faces. So if you were like his mom and walked right up to him, he wouldn't recognize his mother's face, but he can recognize other things of like maybe like hair, form, voice. And so that is a weird little twist that adds sort of a tension in their marriage that I think maybe wouldn't have been there if he did not have that. Right. But yeah, so and I actually Googled that to be like, is this real? Because I was like, I've never heard of that before. So
is it real? Oh, okay.
It is real. Okay. But I've obviously I've never met anyone who had that. But it's definitely interesting. But I think anyone who loves a good thriller will really like this. I mean, think I'm going to give this to my dad for the holidays, because he reads all sorts of thrillers. He read the book that Abby recommended and loved it. So, you know, any mystery, because it's not totally thriller. It's like a little mystery.
Suspenseful.
It's suspenseful, but you're trying to figure it out. So anyway, I really liked it, and I hope that you guys might like it too.
Thank you. All right, moving on to, I'm going to pause now. Abby.
Thanks, Christy. This is my nonfiction pick that I wanted to share with you. It is a memoir, and it's written by Anjali Tamang in conjunction with Sarah Simons. And Sarah, possibly in a follow-up email, Sarah came for a virtual author visit on November 18th to talk about this book, but to also talk about her organization, Her Future Coalition, which I'll give you a little bit more information after I give you a little description about this book. It's heartbreaking, but also hopeful. So it's about human trafficking. And Anjali was 11 when she was trafficked from her village in Nepal to Kolkata, India. And she suffered tremendous physical, sexual, emotional abuse. So this is a really delicate book, delicate topic, but also very important. So this book, Sarah Simons interviewed her, and so this book was written from the pages of her journals that Anjali wrote during that time. Also from firsthand accounts from people who worked in the shelter, and ultimately the people who helped Anjali escape, and during her repatriation, I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but to Nepal. So Sarah it was actually Anjali who wanted to focus in on the reasons why trafficking exists and the root causes, but she wanted to focus in on the healing aspects of it and what she had to go through. So just to give a little glimpse, and we'll include the LibGuide to that event, which goes into about a 20-30 minute talk by the author, Sarah Simons, about Anjali's life. But just to sum it up for you, Anjali was beloved by her father, who was the teacher in the school in her home village. He got sick, he died. He was her advocate. And with that, her advocate died. She was heartbroken. Her mother had severe mental illness, depression. They were very poor. And there's really no hope. There's the poverty of needs, or her physical needs, and the mind and the spirit. So she was then brought from Nepal to Kolkata at a very young age. But before she was leaving, she had to run into the woods to hide from these boys who wanted to marry her, because it was either, enter into a child marriage or go to Kolkata to be trafficked. But she didn't know that going in. There's such, as she puts it, ignorance. So her goal through her healing is to resurrect the school in Nepal, to empower young girls and families so that this never happens again. And so Sarah Simons created this foundation called Her Future Coalition. And I bring this book up because any purchase of this book from her website, from Her Future Coalition, goes towards helping victims of human trafficking. So her Future Coalition has been around since 2005. Sarah Simons started it after she watched a documentary at a Tribeca Film Festival, which you would also find out about that in that author talk. But Her Future Coalition breaks the cycle of poverty and exploitation by providing education and services to the survivors and the most vulnerable population in India and Nepal. So it's a very heart-wrenching but hopeful story. I know it's such a juxtaposition of emotions. I highly recommend this book, or even donating to this organization that really has helped this story, this young woman. You can see one person affected by a team of people who had to get her out of there. And it's quite a story. I'm still reading the book because it's really painful to get through. But also, I do recommend it here at the library. We have 2 copies. So just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you, Abby. All right. Oops, sorry. Okay, so we just realized it's 8 o'clock already. So I'm gonna try to go a little faster because I know that I can talk too long about my books. So I'm gonna try to speak faster than I usually do. So this is my last pick. This is The Troubled Girls of Dragomeer Academy, and this is a middle grade book by Anne Ursu. This is one of those classic fairy tale stories, though, that I think it has appeal for all ages. So this tells the story of a 12-year-old girl named Maria Lupu, and she lives in this village where she and most of the girls and women of the village are overlooked by everyone because the focus has always been on her brother Luca, who is destined to become a sorcerer. So this village, there's this phenomena called the dread, and the dread is basically this black cloud that can appear and take over a village, and it can kill everybody in the village. And nobody knows where it came from. There are rumors that it came from a war between the witches and sorcerers long ago, but nobody really knows the full story. And so the sorcerers of this kingdom keep the dread at bay. And so there's this tradition where sorcerers visit every household where there's a boy, doesn't matter, poor, rich, background, anything like that. Sorcerers will visit every household where there is a boy when the boy is around 12 years old and do this special test to see if he shows signs of magic. And so Maria's brother Luca is the family's hope. They are hoping that he'll become a sorcerer. And so they've basically been training him his whole life. And so we finally get to the point where the wizard or the sorcerers are coming to his house, and Maria's family has been preparing. Her mother is very uptight and basically always treats Maria like she's in the way, which has always made Maria feel like dirt, basically. And Maria and her brother Luca have a troubled relationship as well, but they're always pranking each other. And the day of the sorcerer's visit, Maria's brother Luca, he goes too far. He takes her brand new dress that her mother has bought her for the visit, and he feeds it to the goats, and it's ruined. And so Maria's mother finds out, blames her, and she is banished to her room. Her mother says, I don't want to hear a sound from you. Just get out of the way while we do this. And so basically when the sorcerers show up, they ask, do you have any other children? And the mother says, no. And poor Maria, her heart is broken. So while this is happening, though, she had a fight with her mother. She had run into the house and left her back door open. So while the sorcerers are there, this most important visit of their life, the goat has gotten into the house and is like eating everything. He's gone up the back stairs. He's eating the curtains. He's eating the bedspread. And Maria is supposed to be silent in her room. She sees the goat. She's trying to keep him quiet, trying to shush him so that the visit can just get out of the way. And then the sorcerer does the magic to test her brother. And apparently goats don't like magic. And so he goes nuts. He starts rampaging through the house. He bursts through it's kind of comical. He bursts through the railing of the stairwell right into the middle of the sorcerers and the family, and everything is ruined. And in the process, Maria yells at the sorcerer, like while she's trying to help catch the goat, she yells at the sorcerer, be quiet, stop. And that's like yelling at the king himself. So he's like the head sorcerer. So everything is basically, there's a silence, it's over. So a few days later, they get a letter that her brother has not been selected to be a sorcerer. And then a few days after that, they get a letter stating that Maria has to go to this school called Dragomeer Academy for Troubled Girls. And she has no choice in the matter. It's compulsory. So she's sent to this school. The school, her relationship with her family is basically broken. So she's willing to go. She goes to this school, and it's this castle. It's this beautiful old castle. And it's filled with this variety of interesting girls. It's not what she thought it would be. It has a history of its own. And she and the reader come to realize that basically the girls in this castle are not exactly troubled. They're just girls who pushed back. They didn't do what the adults told them to do. So any girl who asked a question, who didn't want to marry the person she was supposed to marry, who didn't want to wear the dress she was supposed to dress, these are the troubled girls. And the author is so good at, she's so good at, Anne Erstu writes these fantasies and stories with magic in them, but she's so good at getting like those adolescent feelings at the same time. And these poor girls are always like, but am I troubled? What? How am I troubled? They don't understand why they're considered troubled. And so Maria, our heroine, when she's there, she basically starts poking around in the history of the school and finds out some information that could change everything that they've ever been told in the whole history of the kingdom. So this is just a delightful fantasy story. It's my favorite thing about this book is that the message that is given to readers, and a character says this to Maria at some point, is it's always a good idea to question the stories the world tells you. And that is the theme of this book, which I loved. It definitely has a little feminist agenda, which I also loved. And it's perfect for middle grade readers who love the Land of Stories series, School for Good and Evil series, Harry Potter. It's a great choice for kids from, I'd say, age 7 and up. So that is The Troubled Girls of Dragomeer Academy.
Okay. This is my last pick. It's A Place to Hang the Moon. This is a middle grade as well. It's by Kate Albus. I will just say that this is also for all ages. I think it's always healthy for everyone to read at least one middle grade a year. This is a great read aloud for as a family. As young as 6 and 7-year-olds will enjoy this being read aloud to. And it would be perfect for an older sibling to read aloud to younger. It really hits it because it feels like a classic. So it's 1940 and there are 3 siblings, William, Edmund, and Anna. Their opening scene is their grandmother, who was not very grandmotherly, has just died, and it's the funeral. And the solicitor comes and tells them that, yes, they have an inheritance, but they need a guardian. And it's being in World War II. So his only idea is well, we're going to pack you with the evacuees, send you off to the country, and you're going to get assigned a family, to stay with, and maybe they'll adopt you. And that's the best plan that they have. The oldest is used to kind of being a parent, and he's very dutiful and, stressed out, poor kid. Edmund is the middle child. He's mischievous and hilarious. And Anna is very sweet and smart. And they all love books. Like, they're packing their suitcases and they all have to make room for at least one book that they can bring with them. When they do get evacuated, they go through a series of different homes, and they're all terrible in different ways. Some of them are just, strapped for any food. And so they're taking on extra kids, and others are, there's bullies and lots of things. So the only thing that they have in their life in this new town is the library, and there's a librarian. So as I said, this one is my love letter to the librarian and how it can make a big difference. So they go through all these different houses, but they have this, the librarian who will give them food and notice when they're upset and always find the right book for them. But nobody in the community will really talk to the librarian. She's shunned for a reason, not really, part of it. And so part of it's a mystery of why, because, you start to get the hankering of maybe she would be the perfect home. She also gardens. So this book it talks about the importance of family, and sometimes the family that you choose is, just as good as the family that you're given. It will make you want to reread The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and it will make you want to sit with a pile of books and have a cup of hot chocolate and a big piece of toast and, want to plant a garden and live in a library. So it is all the things, and it's great on audio. It's on Hoopla. The audiobook cover is terrible. Ignore it. I've already bought a copy of this for my friend's 10-year-old daughter. As I said, you could give it, it's a great family gift, but I want to buy copies for everyone because it's just like a cup of hot chocolate for the soul. So that is A Place to Hang the Moon by Kate Albus.
That sounds delightful. Thank you. Felicia.
All right, so this is also middle grade-ish. It's, I would say middle grade YA-ish, but again, everyone would love it. I loved it. It's The Accidental Apprentice. It's a new series, so it's the start to a series. So again, it's kind of a good gift book because you can get someone hooked on a brand new series. It basically follows Barclay Thorne, who never wanted an adventure after a monster attacked his hometown called Dullshire, which is hilarious and aptly named because this is the worst town ever. But anyway, a monster attacked this town, killed his parents, and he's basically like the orphan that everyone just kind of has to deal with. This town has so many rules that you need to follow, and one of the unspoken rules is you should have a family. And so like Barclay has no way of fixing this, of course, but he's kind of like shunned. But he becomes an apprentice to the town mushroom farmer, which apparently every town needs one. He is kind of taken pity on, and he becomes an apprentice along with Selby, who might be like the worst character I've ever read because he's so annoying. All he does is complain and complain, and he never actually wants to do anything to help Master Pillsman, who is the mushroom farmer. And Master Pillsman like still lets him stay, and like Barclay's like, I should be doing this, like I'm better at this, and Selby's just always there. So anyway, Barclay accidentally breaks the town's most sacred rule, which is never, ever, ever go into the woods, because the woods are where the vicious magical beasts live. And but you know, because Master Pillsman asked them to, they go into the woods to find this very rare mushroom. They're supposed to like kind of stay on the edge, and they both get scared from this animal that's there, and they run further into the woods. And that is where they run into this girl who has a magic dragon flying around her. And they find out that she is a lore keeper, which is someone who purposefully bonds with beasts, and they share their power. Basically, Barclay's like worst nightmare is to ever be a lore keeper. According to the town, it's the worst thing you can ever do. So he, unfortunately, gets in the way of this girl bonding with a legendary beast, and Barclay accidentally bonds with the beast instead. He really tries to keep this under wraps. He has like this mark on his arm to show that he's bonding, and basically the beast like lives in his arm after they bonded. So like he goes back to the town and pretends like nothing happened. He wears long sleeves, he acts all cool, everything's fine, until classic Selby tells everybody. And he gets run out of town by an angry mob. And so he runs into this girl again after he gets kicked out of town, and she says, you know what, I want that beast anyway. Come with me. We'll go to this town where lore keepers live, and someone will be able to figure out how to break that bond for you. So they travel to this mysterious town, and he is convinced by the lore masters that the only way that they'll be willing to help him break the bond is to compete in this lore keepers exhibition. Basically, they need to like prove their power and their bonds with their magical beasts. And that's basically to prove that he's strong enough to endure the magic that would be like inflicted on him to break the bond. And of course, there's some like evil, and Barclay finds his way of, you know, coming to terms with his life. Everything's good and happy and amazing. And it's the first in a series. I'm very excited to read the rest. It's an amazing gift for any young fantasy readers. I would say it's perfect for like grades 4 through 8, but I do think younger can read it, and definitely older can read it too. So that is The Accidental Apprentice.
Awesome. Thank you, Felicia. Please, Keith.
Hi. So I picked as another recommendation, The Pioneer Woman Cooks, super easy. I really like The Pioneer Woman. I just find her really entertaining. Her show is on the Food Network. She also has written children's books called Charlie the Ranch Dog, because she has multiple basset hounds, and I have a basset hound, so maybe that's why I feel this connection with her. Probably not though. But anyway, she has some really great, easy recipes that I really enjoy making. I like this book because in the beginning, she'll give you like ingredients you should keep in your pantry, so you can just like go to the store, have all this stuff, and you can use it for multiple meals. I've made a couple things in it. I made the sheet pan recipe and hold on, I can't remember the name of it, and the white chicken chili, which is really good. And I just think that she's really relatable. Her recipes are really straightforward and easy. And so, especially if you're looking for like easy weeknight meals, I think hers are great. And she also has some great dessert picks. She has a poke cake recipe in there, and I think anybody at the library knows I often make a poke cake for the library staff. She has just some good, easy, like doable recipes that aren't too complicated. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you, Liz.
Yeah.
Pioneer Woman also has a very entertaining social media page.
Yeah, and I like how she talks about her husband's arms.
Yes. Abby.
Yay. Well, I just want to say thanks to Liz, because Liz takes care of us at every month for all of our birthdays. So thank you, Liz. Inspired.
My pleasure.
So this is my kids' book, or children's book that I am going to share with you. It is probably for like second, third graders. So I picked it because it came into my radar. My son's in 6th grade, but another boy in his class read it. And this is like an area of weakness for me. The fantasy, the fairy tale read aloud. So I had to stretch myself, but it's a true test was when I'm reading it to my kids and they roll their eyes like, and then I say something and they ask like, wait, what happened? And so I know that they're listening, even though they're playing with Legos or coloring or trying to read other books, they were listening to this book. So it's very lyrical. It is a fairy tale. So this is the Classics Deluxe with a foreword by Neil Gaiman. And it's a fun book, quirky, very, very quirky. And there's a hero's quest. So there is a princess who needs to be saving. But so to sum it all up, there's an evil duke who lives in Coffin Castle. The castle is so cold that all the clocks are frozen. All 13 clocks are frozen until at 10 minutes to 5. He is the uncle of the beautiful princess, Sarah Linda. And she is upon her 21st birthday, and he tests all her suitors and gives them impossible tasks. And so then Prince Zorn of Zorna shows up, and he's disguised as a minstrel, but then thrown into jail because he's publicly mocking the Duke. Throughout the story, there's always the magical guide, and I might botch this name, but it's Galux or Gayu, however that's pronounced. I even looked up pronunciations and had both. But it's like the little magical friend who kind of guides you along your way. So he's his guide. And so once the Duke learns that he's the prince, that Prince Zorn of Zorn is the prince, he tasks him with this impossible job to get 1,000 diamonds or 1,000 jewels from his own home castle, and also restart the clocks. So along with Galux or Galou, the two of them embark on this journey to save the princess. And so I'll leave the rest to you. It's fun to read out loud. It's, you got to kind of, there's no rhythm to it, but it keeps you on your toes as someone who reads out loud, as the narrator, I guess. And it's a great gift and something for, like, if there are kids in your life or in grandchildren or whomever, it's a fun, quirky book. So I recommend it.
Thank you, Abby. All right. So I know that we have gone over an hour. We were going to try to stick to close to an hour. Let's see. So we did make a lightning round, which we don't really have time to go into all of them, but you can see the beautiful covers here. And I just want to reiterate that if you come to the library, you can see these beautiful gift guides, I will send out the PDF of these if anybody wants them. The books that we talked about should be on here, as well as the books that were in the lightning round that we didn't have time for. They should also be on here. And then you can also always come to the library and talk to us we are happy to give you ideas for buying books for the people in your life. It's one of our favorite things to do. So we have adult and kids gift guide here.